Okay, so we're going to be working on a practice investigation, which gives an answer ready for the full one. And for this particular investigation, we do go through the inquiry cycle, which is formulating our question, which I'll be giving to you, collecting and organizing our data, playing with the patterns, trying to find what the patterns are, generalizing your findings, verifying your answers, and then justifying our answers and transferring the ideas to new situations. So the question this time is, what is the effect of placing absolute value signs into the inside of the function, so like on the x value itself? All right, and so in doing this investigation, we're going to play with the functions a little bit, see what this transformation does. We're going to be using Desmos a lot. You need to start, and you also need to do some communication of your key findings to the teacher, and I'll take you through the process. Below, I'll add some suggestions how to start and things to try in Desmos and to try to find the effective transformation. I'll also attempt to highlight what steps need to be communicated. So what we're going to do first is we're going to type g of absolute x into Desmos, and then g of x equals. So in Desmos, I've already typed y equals g of absolute x, and then here I'm going to g of x equals some function. And what my recommendation is let's first try x plus 1. And I'm going to try x, I'm going to turn this one off, x plus 1, which is just our straight line. And what the idea here is, we don't know what's going to be. We should stop and think for a moment. What do you think this is going to do? Think about it, and then turn it on. So it takes it and does that, takes that straight line, and it makes it into a V. Okay, so there's the first one. I just want to think about it, right? And so now I'm going to try, well, what would happen if I try x squared minus 4x minus 5? So again, I'm going to turn off the absolute value. This is going to be x to the power 2 minus 4x minus 5. So here's my graph. I want to think about when I turn this one on. Don't turn it on too quick. Think first what's going to happen. When you do, take a look and, oh, that's a peculiar thing. It has this kind of shape. That's not what I was expecting. All right, so, and then what I want you to do is I want you to try some more. Try some more on your own. Think of these. Try the different kinds of transformations we've looked at, or the kinds of functions we've looked at. Shift it away from just the origin, like put it in certain places and try and see what you want to do. And then when you're done, you want to, once you kind of have a sense of what this absolute value function is doing, then you want to try to write it up, because you're trying to communicate to us your thinking. And so what the communication is, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to, first thing in the communication step is you're going to write down the curiosity question. So here's the write-up that I did for it, and I'm going to write down my curiosity question. I was lazy and just took a screenshot. You're going to have to actually write it out. The next step is show at least 2 different functions along with the corresponding transformations. Explain your thinking. Use different colors to emphasize the communication. Well, I went along and I tried this first one here. And in my communication, to make it even better, make sure I put some labels on here. This is X and Y. And if I had a ruler, I would use it, but it's really hard with this pad to do so. And so you notice I've labeled some of the key points. And then when I've done the transformation, I thought about reflected. After I'd done a bunch, I thought about what it had done. And I, with a different color, I reflected it over, then considered what I was thinking about. I want to do at least 2 different functions. Well, here was the first function, and then I did another one to consider the square root function, and I was playing with it to see what was going on. And I write up about some of my interesting findings, what I was curious about, and I even thought what would happen if I had a graph that was all on the left-hand part of the axis. I was being the inquirer at this point, and so I went and I did it. So this is still communication step 2, my playing around. And when I did this one, there was no graph. Okay, and then step 3, because once I had the idea, so I had been playing around with Desmos that I didn't show you, but I played around with Desmos a lot until I could predict what the actual transformation was. So I would try a different one. I would try maybe something like this one. Let's go x minus 2 to the power of 3, cubic function to the power of 3, to the power of 3, plus 1, plus 1. And so when I have this one, what I think is going to happen, I think it's going to go up here and around and up. And once I get to the point where I can predict it, then I'm ready to generalize my findings. And so when I generalize my findings, this is what I came up with. And I want to generalize it by talking about it in words, doing it graphical, and then talking about what the points become. This is where you describe what happens. This is the what happens parts. And so taking it through, and you can see I've got an original graph, the transformed graph. I talk about in words what happens here. And then I go so far as to explain what happens to the points. Okay? I'm doing the points. And then the justification is the why. Convince me, why does it do this? Why does it take this part that's on the right-hand side and reflect it over to the left-hand side and vanish all the other parts? That's what we talk about on the why. That's what happens here. I wrote it up. I used some numbers and math to explain the reason why it happens. And then finally, the last step is you take it and you transfer your knowledge to a brand new function that you have. And if you can transfer it, that is probably the best thing that we can hope for. And I had done that, and I had finished doing it, and this is the one I came up with. So read over this task. That's how I did it, but the key is do not rush this step of the play. This is the key part. Try different functions. Be creative with your functions here. That's what's really important. Think about what you're doing. Don't just don't wait. You have to be creative with your own ideas. Try different functions and see what happens with your graph.